Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again. Tomorrow it's Friday, Parashat Lech. Wow, that's a big one for us here in Itamar. Literally, as we look out the window, we're looking at those mountains. We're looking at the place where Abraham came to when he entered the land. But anyway, this story I've told many times, and I invite you all who have been here to come again, to hear it again, and for those who have never heard before, to hear it for the first time. And but today I don't want to talk about that particular part of the story of Lech Lecha, but I want to focus on a personality in the Tanakh here mentioned in this week's portion that's not spoken about too much, and his name is Melchizedek, the king of Shalem. Who was his personality? And in order to understand, let me quickly review his appearance in the Bible. As we all know, there's a war going on. Abraham is born in the year 1948, as we know the year he's born in. And he eventually makes his way to the land of Israel when God tells him to go to the land. And Abraham is already in the land. He's settled in a place called Hebron. After he comes through here, Itamar, from Shechem, and he goes down south and settles in a place called the plains, the Tabrants of Mamre. And he has some friends there, Aner, Veshkol, and he's living there very, very happily and contently. Although he had to go down to Egypt, we know he comes back, difficult challenges, but he's there living in Hebron. And then, of course, a war takes place in the world between the 4 and 5 kings. And this war is a result, and I can't go into all the details, but we know in last week's portion, learning about the division of the lineage of the children of Noah after the flood. So they were divided into different groups, and there was really no inheritances given out. We didn't hear about particular people getting inheritances, right? But we know that they were living in different parts of the land, like the Canaanites were living here in Israel. The Canaan, right? The son of Ham, one of his sons. So his children were spread out here in this area of the land of Israel, Canaan. And in the eastern area were the children of Yoktan, which were the lineage of Shem, one of the children of Shem. They were spread out on the eastern part. But again, there was like a division. They were beginning to disperse after the flood. The dispersal began slowly, but we know the Tower of Babylon, we spoke about that it sort of enhanced the dispersal of the different people, and also created tension because they began to battle over leadership, as we see what this world war that took place of 4 or 5 kings was again a power struggle, and it was a land struggle of where to live and what area to settle in. Battles always about the land and about the assets that are on the land itself, and for water source and agricultural land and good, or whether it could be fine metals like gold, fighting over things that are worth money. Whatever it was, this battle took place, and Abraham was here, settled, and came to the land of Israel. As God told him, this is going to be your inheritance, and he's in Hebron. And he hears that his nephew Lot, who was living in the area of Sodom, was captured in the battle, and he was, again, not only his properties taken away. So Abraham gets together his 318 soldiers and he goes to battle. Not only that, the Torah says something unusual. He goes all the way up north to Dan. Now Dan, as we know, was the tribal portion of Dan, although it was before Dan had his portion, but the Torah was written after, we know, Abraham. And it was mentioned, it's prophecy, so it mentions the places already as a tribal portion in the future will take place with Dan. Dan had 2 areas. He inherited the coastal area of Tel Aviv today, plus the northern area near a place called Tel Dan, or the river Dan, which is one of the tributaries that really enter from there, one of the sources, I would say, of the Jordan River, right? Yarden means coming down from Dan, from that area. That's really, that area, there's an ancient, people have visited Tel Dan, they visited the ancient site. It goes back thousands of years ago. That area is where Dan was one of the areas where Dan lives. Moshe Rabbeinu blesses Dan. Yizanek min Bashan, he will come out of the Bashan, which is the northern part of Israel, near the Hermon mountain, extending all the way in the Golan Heights. And that, again, is Dan. So Dan had these 2 portions. And Abram had to actually travel all the way up north, a very far way. He ends up going to Damascus. I'm not going to go there. It's a different class in itself to understand the geographical travelings. But after Abram does his job and goes all the way, he's coming back down to meet this king we're going to talk about in a moment, Melchizedek. And he comes down, and he's coming down. Now, what route did he take? There's a place called Derech HaMelech, the route of the king, which was on the eastern part of the Jordan. So that was one of the possibilities that Abraham came back down there, or he could have gone through Route 60, the way of the forefathers, which is the road here near Itamar. And Abraham's coming back down, and then he meets this king called Shalem. Now I'd like to read the verses, particular verses that describe this meeting of the king of Shalem. And the Torah says like this, it says, okay, let's go over here. So it says Abraham goes to battle, right? He gives back the possessions, and he returns Lot, his nephew. Then it says in 14, verse number 18, it says, O Melchizedek melech Shalem, Melchizedek, the king of Shalem, Hotzi lechem yayin, he takes out bread and wine, V'hu kohen l'elyon, he's a priest to the Elyon, to the God, the highest God. And why does the Bible say the highest God? Because in those days there were idol worshippers and they believed in all kinds of gods. And here it says that this person, Melchizedek, Melech Shalem, the king of Shalem, he was the priest for the highest God. In other words, he was worshiping the king of the universe, the real king of the universe. Who was this Melchizedek? This Melchizedek was none other, our rabbis teach us, than Shem ben Noach. Shem, the son of Noah. It works out perfectly with the numbers. As Shem lived, he even outlived Abraham by 35 years. After Abraham passed away, Shem was still around 35 years afterwards. And he had a very, very long life. Although he was Abraham's 9 times great-grandfather, because if you go back, there were 10 generations from Noah to Abraham, and Shem was already the 2nd generation, so there were 9 generations from Shem to Abraham. And that was his great-grandfather. And he's the one who's actually greeting his great-grandson Abraham with bread and wine. What's going on over here? It's coming out to him. And then it says, Vayivachehu, when he blesses Abraham, Vayomer, and he says to him, Baruch Avraham le'elyon, blessed be Abraham to the God of the universe, Koneh Shamayim va'aretz, God who is the God of the universe, Baruch elyon, Hashem migein tzrecha b'yad. Then he blesses God and says, blessed be God who protected you from your enemies. V'itein lo ma'aseh mikol. Abraham gives Melchizedek tithes from everything. Okay? So here is something, those are a few verses that a Melchizedek is mentioned. And again, as I mentioned, that rabbis revealed to us that it was Shem, the son of Noah. What's going on over here? First of all, we have a few questions. Number one is, what is Melchizedek doing in Israel? Number two, where is this place? He's the king of Shalem. Where is Shalem? Now, the simple understanding, most understandings, Shalem refers to Jerusalem. But I would like to mention one particular, I read some article, some investigator, modern investigator, a lot of people are giving their opinion and throwing in certain possibilities. There's nothing wrong with that. When you're studying Bible, you're allowed to learn 70 different aspects of the Torah, and you can for sure add your own insight or your own chidush, as we say. And although it doesn't contradict the Torah in any way, the ethical teachings of the Torah doesn't contradict the Jewish law, right? So there's no problem with that, because there are always different opinions. But although his opinion sort of goes against everybody I've read about. But I'd like to mention, because it happens to be this area. It says in the Bible, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem Ir Shechem. Jacob came to the city, Shalem, called, right, the city of Shechem. Now, most commentaries will say Jacob came Shalem. In other words, he came in a completeness. When he comes to the city of Shechem, he comes totally wholesome and complete. But there are opinions of the Septuagint. We all know the Targum Shivim, which one is a very, very ancient translation of the Bible for the Jews that lived in Alexandria in Egypt who spoke Greek. So the Torah was translated into the Greek language by Jews. And there it refers to the place Shalem as the name of a place. And it's very interesting that sort of connects archaeologically. We right near Itamar, we have a place called Shalem, an ancient city here that goes back in that time, that's been preserved by the villagers that live here. They call it Shalem, Salim. And that place was we see near the city of Shechem, right? The ancient city of Shechem. So therefore, a possibility could be that Melchizedek was, perhaps, the king of this area in Shechem, which was one of the major, again, it's mentioned in ancient cuneiform script, and that this area, Shechem, is mentioned. And the name Shalem is mentioned, so perhaps it's referring to that. right? It's a possibility. So anyway, he brings that down. He goes on in his article, he mentions that option, but he himself accepts the common option at the end that refers to Jerusalem, Shem referring to Yerushalayim, and of course that's what everyone really accepts. That's the accepted opinion that Melchizedek was the king of Jerusalem. But interesting is that Abraham coming back from all the way up north, Itamars were located sort of central, like north of Jerusalem, but centrally located in the mountains heading north. It would be a pathway that Abraham had to go through, so he could have easily met him here, or further down south in Jerusalem, which was the common opinion, as we mentioned. So anyway, Melech Shalem, let's go for the Chazal, of course, and let's go what our rabbis teach us, and mention all over the Talmud and everywhere, and all over the Midrash. Shalem refers to Yerushalayim el Kodesh, the holy city of Jerusalem. But the question is, what is Shem ben Noach doing here? Shem, as we all know, was living across the Jordan River. That's where he was originally living. And we see that he migrated, something attracted him, and he migrated to Jerusalem. So here we see something, I think, a very beautiful thing, that Jerusalem's like a magnet. And Shem, Noah probably told Shem that eventually from your seed, not all of Shem's seed, because we know that Shem had different sons, but from a particular son, Parashat, who had Shelach and Ever, as we all know, and Peleg, and eventually from that lineage, who came out, the lineage of Abraham, right? Abraham was the son of Terach, was the son of Nahor, right? From that lineage of Parashat, the son of Shem, came out the nation of Israel, right? And Jacob and Abraham, so they inherited the land of Israel. So Noah probably revealed, and he revealed to his son Shem that area, he probably gave him out the list of inheritance later on, that this area was going to be for your seed. They probably knew it by the highest spiritual level of prophecy. But whatever, we see that Shem is attracted. He had other sons, but he was attracted to come to this holy land of Israel. He wanted to go to Jerusalem, the holiest of holy places in the world. The attraction of being in Jerusalem was very powerful. And he felt, as someone who wanted to worship Hashem, he felt very strong attraction to Jerusalem, which was the central area destined to be the place of the Beit HaMikdash for the temple. So we see it really beginning with Melchizedek. He actually was a priest here. Now, what kind of priest could he be before the Torah was given? And here we see another example of how from the first man all the way down to down the line until eventually Israel was formed as a nation, but there was the divine is the Kuzari, Rabbi Levi. He writes about Ha'inyan Eloki, the divine thing. In other words, Hashem passed down to certain individuals at that time this special zgula, the special treasure of bearing the spirituality of being a light to the world, of having to bear that task of declaring the oneness of God in the world. And that began with Adam HaRishon, from the first man, and eventually was passed down to select children, not everyone. And from Shem's lineage, right, from Noah's lineage, Shem was the one who inherited that from Noah himself. But not all the children of Noah, right, because we know that Yefet and Ham did not receive that. Now from Shem, who took upon this responsibility, he was someone who was meditating on the oneness of God, and he was a very, very special person. So he received that special divine treasure. And he passed it down, not to all his children, but it was passed down, as we see later on, through one of his children, Parashat, who later on, Ever came out of that. So Ever really continued that, although Shem was still alive when Ever was born, as I mentioned before. So Shem still, to this very moment, as we read about now, which is our lesson for today, he's a priest in Jerusalem. And he's teaching the word of God, and he's connected to Hashem. But here he makes a mistake, and I want to mention that. I'm going to bring down the Talmud now. It's a passage in Talmud to see his mistake. The Talmud in Darim, famous tractate, talks about oaths in the Bible, in our oral Torah. On page 32b, says like this: Amar Rabbi Zechariah mishum Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Zechariah, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, says, Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu lotzi kihuna mishem. God wanted to take out the priesthood from Shem. He wanted to bless Shem with the priesthood, that it should come out of him. Shneimar v'hu kohen le'elyon. It says that he is a priest le'el elyon, to the God of all gods. Kivan shikdim bekat Avraham li bekat hamakom. But because he first blessed Abraham before he blessed God, so therefore he was punished, and now the priest is going to come out of Abraham, not out of Shem. Shneimar, as it says, vayivarcheu vayomer baruch Avraham le'elyon. He says, he blessed me. He says, blessed be Abraham le'el elyon. Right. In other words, he's blessing Abraham in the name of Hashem, the God of the universe. And then he says, u'baruch elyon, and blessed be el elyon, blessed be the God of the universe. And the Gemara goes on, the Talmud says, Amalu Avraham, Abraham says to him, v'chi makdimim bekat eved lebekat kono. How can it be possible that we are going to first place the blessing of a servant before the blessing of the Creator? In other words, Abraham was saying to Melchizedek, who came out with him with bread and wine, why are you blessing me first before God? Miyad nitna l'Avraham. At that moment, the priesthood was given to Abraham instead of Shem. Shneimar ne'um Hashem. Now let's bring down a verse in Psalms. And I'd like to read, if we actually open up the Psalms over here. There's a famous Psalm that's brought down in 110, Psalm 110, which refers, according to our rabbis, they explain this Psalm talking about Abraham. And I'm going to read to you just the bottom line, what happens in verse number 4. It says, Nishba Hashem, God makes an oath. V'lo yinachem ata kohen, lo yinachem, and God will not stop it. Ata kohen lo'olam, you will be a priest forever. God here, this is a story of Abraham, when Abraham's coming back from battle against the four kings, and he's rescuing everybody. And the story, it talks about his being victorious. So God makes an oath, and he says, V'lo yinachem ata kohen. God is not going to take back his words. Ata kohen, you are the priest. Al divirti Melchizedek. What does that mean? Because of the words of the inyan, the issue of Melchizedek. What happened to Melchizedek? So here we see in the verse of Psalms number 110, and you can read through the Psalm, you try to get familiar with it, you'll see how it's talking about Abraham according to our Midrashim and our sources. It can also be explained, of course, in other ways, but the Midrash, the Talmud here is referring to Melchizedek, Abraham Avinu Melchizedek. So we see over here what Abraham, I'm going to go back to the Talmud now with that verse. So the Talmud says, after Abraham says, how could you bless me before God? So, Nishba Hashem v'lo yinachem. In other words, Al diburo shel Melchizedek, because of the words of Melchizedek, that he placed Abraham before God, v'hu kohen le'elyon, hu kohen, ve'in zao. In other words, God is saying now, hu kohen, Melchizedek, he is a kohen. He's going to remain the priest. But it's going to end there, hu kohen, and not his children a kohen. Now here, this Gemara seems to be very, very difficult to understand. Because Shem is the father, at the end of the line, the father of Abraham, right? He's the great, 9 times grandfather of Abraham. So even if he, what do you mean that if the priest is going to come out of Abraham, not out of Shem? Abraham comes from Shem. So the Rabbeinu Nisim, one of the Rishonim, explains something very, 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 very simple, very, very, it answers the question basically. And he says like this, he says, and I'll read his words. The Ran says, he answers this question. He says, Afal Pisha Avraham Mezarosh, even although Abraham came out of Shem, Lo zacha bekuna machmat Shem ela machmat atzmo. But he was worthy of the priesthood not because of Shem, but because of himself. In other words, this is a very powerful statement. In other words, the Ran is saying something so beautiful and profound that it is like the priesthood is beginning again. Of course, Abraham is the lineage of Shem, but in reality, the message that is being taught over here by the Talmud is that the lineage, the priesthood is beginning again. It's like Hashem is saying, I'm rebooting the priesthood. Beforehand, there was going to be the priesthood would be a connection to, would be connected to Shem in future generations. And now there's no connection to Shem anymore with the priesthood. It is going to only be like it's literally rebooted and begin from Abraham, which is a very powerful statement. So we see that Shem, the king of Shalem, this very special man, he made a mistake and he lost having the priesthood continue from him. Now it would begin from Abraham. But nevertheless, he was a great, great person. And I want to bring down a very interesting teaching that shows, a little bit how great this person was and why the priesthood should have come out of him, but it didn't in the end. If we see in the Bible, there are two stories that I can think of, and probably others, but I don't recall others, that during battle, soldiers are in battle and they need some supplies. So if I bring down one of the sources that I can remember is regarding, first of all, the book of Judges in Shoftim, and regarding Gidon. Here again, mentioned close to this area, Gideon. And regarding Gideon, the Torah says, the Bible says like this. It says in chapter 8, verse 4, Vayavo Gidon HaYordena, and Gideon comes to the Jordan River. And it says, Hu ushlosh meod ish asherito, he has 300 soldiers with him. V'ayefim, and they're tired, because they've been chasing after the enemy of Zebach and Salmunah, as we all know, from the Midianites, and they're tired. And they say, Vayomel Anshe Sukkot, and they go along and they say to the people of Sukkot, Tenuna kikod lechem la'ama sheberaglai ka'efimhem, because they go along to Sukkot and they say, please give us bread because we're tired. Vanochi rodof achay zevach, and I'm running at the zevach of Salmunah. So they're basically requesting from the people of Sukkot in that area to give them food. Vayom sarei Sukkot, hakav zevach v'tzalmunah ata biyadecha, are they in our hands? Zevach v'tzalmunah, ki nitan tzvarecha, that we're going to feed you bread. In other words, Sukkot is saying, why should we give you food? I don't see these kings captured yet. So they refuse to give them. And Gideon says when he gets back, he's going to take care of them. He's going to whip the flesh with thorns. And then he goes on to a place called Penuel, and he also says to them, to give them food. And they also say they're not going to help him. And then he says he's going to destroy their tower. So we see here that in the story in Judges, that Gideon is asking for help, and he's not receiving his help, and his soldiers are tired from battle. And he's not greeted in a proper way, and they end up getting punished for what they did. Another example is with King David. As we all know, the story of King David in the book of Shmuel, in the chapter 25, King David, again, he's hungry with his soldiers, and he sends his servants to go to a person called Naval, and Naval refuses to feed King David and his soldiers, although David was reaching out to them and helping them, and he didn't harm them in any way. He was only good to Naval. And eventually Abigail, the wife of Naval, comes out and helps King David. But we see here again an act of lack of love for brother, not wanting to go out and greet and help, but refusing to bring water and food and nourishment for the soldiers in battle. So we see two examples. Now here we see something very special. Let's get back to Melchizedek, who this great person was, Shem, right, the king of Jerusalem at that time. And Melchizedek, and I want to read the verse, it says like this, it says, Melchizedek melech Shalem, hotzi lechem v'yayin v'hu kohen l'Elyon. He brings out bread and wine, and he's the priest from Hashem. Now, I saw a beautiful commentary on that verse, written by the grandson of the Khatam Sofer. The grandson of the Khatam Sofer, one of the famous rabbis in Europe. And I'd like to read, if I can find the exact source, I'd like to read what he says, or I'll just say it by heart if I can't find it in a moment. And I found it. And again, it's written by a person named Rabbi Avram Shmuel Binyamin Sofer. He says like this. Melchizedek melech Shalem motzi lechem v'yayin. Says Melchizedek brought out bread and wine. And he says like this. Yesh lefaresh beli safek. We have to explain like this. If Abraham would have came out to Melchizedek, the king of Jerusalem, he would have said to him, we're tired, give us bread, and give us bread, give us some food. So the world would look at it very, very, in a very bad way if Melchizedek would not come forth and bring out bread and food for the soldiers of Abraham. So if it was, so Abraham would have went ahead and requested, and he refused to, it would look very bad. Just like I was thinking, so right away when I read this explanation, I thought of the story of King David requesting food and not getting it, and the story of Gideon requesting food and not getting it. So it would be a similar kind of thing if he wouldn't have given it. So therefore, if he would have given it after being requested, it would have been not such a great, it would have been good. It would have been a wonderful thing, right? You requested and you do give it. But it still wouldn't be on the highest of levels now. That's what he's saying, something so powerful. He's saying, look over here very carefully. He's saying, but what happened over here with Melchizedek? It says that Hotzi Lechem, he brought out bread and wine. In other words, he did it without being asked. This is suitable for someone who's is a priest. In other words, sometimes when someone asks you to do love and kindness and you do it, it's a wonderful thing, right? Because the worst thing to do is to refuse. When someone reaches out and says, please help me, you don't help them, that's evil, that's terrible. Even if you don't have a lot to help the person, help them with something, a little bit. How can you refuse someone who's reaching out for help? But the greatest level, which Melchizedek Melech Shalem is offering, is to help without being asked. And that's why he was so worthy of being a priest. That's why God said, you're a priest, I'm not taking that away from you. Even though he gave Abraham credit before God, he still said, nevertheless, God is not taking away his priesthood. He will remain a priest because he was a very special person. Not only that, other commentaries say he didn't do anything wrong with that because that was natural to first bless. Natural thing was a person sees someone coming back from where you're blessing him, and right away he blessed God. So obviously we can explain in a way that wasn't a mistake. But the Talmud does comment on that and teach us that in a deep level one should always bless God first. But nevertheless, we see the greatness of Melchizedek, how when love and kindness is needed, he doesn't have to be in any way motivated to do so from the outside, from people asking him. He motivates himself. He's internally motivated because he's on a very, very high spiritual level and he wants to reach out. I think this example of Melchizedek, and later on we see something very interesting. He, of course, is the great-grandfather of Abraham. Abraham continues, and he begins another level of love and kindness that we don't see anywhere. But the common denominator that God is teaching us over here is that to be a Kohen, to be someone worthy of reaching out, being a light to everybody, a light to the nations, a light. Kohen is a leader, right? To be a light like that requires an inner motivation to do love and kindness, to run after, not to wait to people to come to you, but to run after doing love and kindness. That kind of lesson is what it takes to be a great, great Kohen, a great priest. And the priesthood is built around that. Jerusalem is a city. Here, Melchizedek, the first king of Jerusalem, and later on, of course, becomes the capital of Israel. We see that of course, the temple and all that is centered around that capital because the temple has to be there. That comes from the ingredient of love and kindness that has to be reflected within the priests. Therefore, Abraham, who not only was merited in he was rebooted, right? He was now, from him, the priest was going to come out at that moment, and also, of course, the kingship. It all came down of Abraham. It says regarding Israel, Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, the whole nation of Israel is related to as a nation of priests, kings, because that love and kindness is what has to be ingrained within us, a natural way to reach out to others. That lesson is a lesson for all humanity, that we should not wait again to think someone comes knocking on our door. We want to look out and find out how we can help others. For surely, if others turn to us, that is what it takes to be a great, great person. So it wasn't like, again, I want to summarize that Melchizedek he built a certain level, right? It began with him at a certain level, and he came from his area, he came to his track in Jerusalem, he did so much to move forward, love and kindness in the world. Abraham came back and showed another level. And we see that, I think it's so powerful, is that we read about how Abraham, in next week's portion, we're going to read about how Abraham was sick, not feeling well. But he nevertheless runs out to look to do love and kindness, continuing that same chain we learned from here, what Melchizedek did. But Abraham adds another level, not only a person who's from feels an inner need to do love and kindness, but even when you're not feeling well, even you're feeling like dreck, as we say, sorry, Yiddish word, you're feeling really bad. That's not a good word, I think, in Yiddish. But here, feeling like garbage, I think it means, whatever. But you're feeling pretty bad. And after you're being operated on and you had a circumcision, you're feeling really bad. But you're getting up and you're running out and you want to do love and kindness. That is even above the level of Melchizedek, which he began that. Abraham continued, and therefore, as I said before, it was rebooted with him. He began that level of love and kindness. And of course, the lesson that the Talmud is teaching us is that you must always place God before everything. So when we do our love and kindness, we have to know God is the one that's behind it all. And here is something so powerful, is that Abraham says, God, do not go by, don't leave. You stay here. He puts God aside. He's having a conversation. God came to visit him. And he runs out. And he's doing this act of love and kindness and telling, almost like saying, Hashem, please wait. And Hashem is totally with him on it. Because that is what humanity is all about. Humanity is all about. God wants us to show and bestow love on one another. But anyway, I think that's an important lesson. A lot to be learned about, to be reviewed. And God willing, we shall continue next week. So have a wonderful Shabbat Shalom, B'sorot Tovot, Yeshurot, V'nechamot. Bye-bye.